Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I hope I am visible, audible. Hello Simran, good evening. Hi Super Shorts, good evening. So I am Nikita, in case you don't know me, and I welcome you to this series called VARC Gym, where we will practice some heavyweight RC and VA questions. Right, so that's the agenda. It's purely a practice focused session, right? The aim is just to practice, practice, and practice. Okay, so the session will happen every week, right, at 5 p.m. And I'll try to fix a day, most likely Wednesday, but yes, the timings will be, most likely be 5 p.m. itself. Okay, good evening, good evening. Hi Praneeth, hi Only Cat, hi Manas, good evening Devika, Saurabh, hi Gloria. All right, thank you for coming back. Sarthak, Neelu, hello, hello Sujata. Thumbnail is crazy. Okay. All right. Hi Smriti. Hello Siba. How to improve accuracy in RC? So that's what these sessions are also all about. So through elimination, through understanding the process, understanding how to understand the RC, what all to focus on in an RC. I think these are some ways to improve your accuracy in RCs, right? So that is what the focus is going to be in these sessions. Okay. All right. Hi, Sam. So let's begin. There is an RC. You will read it. You will then attempt the questions. Then we'll go back to the RC. In case you haven't understood anything, we'll discuss that. And we'll, of course, discuss the questions as well. Right? That's how we'll proceed. So, as I said, the focus is on practice. Okay, so today's passage is from The Economist. It is 547 words, and you have to figure out the genre, right? So when you read it, I'm sure you will figure it out. Interesting passage. Let's read. Start the first slide. Once you are done, let me know. Focus on the key ideas. Focus on the tone. Sentences that give you the viewpoint of the author, right? Focus more on them. Let's start. So Gloria says done. What about others? Okay. Okay, Praneeth is saying 1 minute, so we are just going back for a bit. Focus on the opening and closing sentences. So there's a question that has been asked. Okay. Ashish says done. What about others? Okay. All right. So has everyone finished? So again, notice the opening sentences. One reason is that, right? So pay attention to opening sentences. Perfect. All right, then let's attempt the first question. Read the question stem carefully. It's an accept question. Okay, so we will attempt the questions in one go and then we'll discuss all of them. Okay, I'll just tell you the correct answer after every attempt. Okay, yeah, let's go. All right, so let's revisit. The first slide, okay. Okay, on the second slide, yes. So option A, for option A, you have to read the second slide, right? The last paragraph. Read? Okay, so for A, this is what you have to read. For B, the evidence lies where? Here. Okay, then C is something. So basically this is a direct question and you have to remember where all you read these things. So it's good that some of you remember that you have to look at the second slide for A, B and C at least, right? So okay, so A, B, C, all right. And for D, its Frenchification was a possibility. So again, so all these, for all these options, you had to look at the second slide. So you have to have that locational retention. Okay, so I have got one A, quite a few A's and one C. Right, so Yash, absolutely correct. C is the answer here. Okay, and I will explain this. Okay, but let's first attempt all the questions, or do you want me to go question by question? Your choice. Tell me, question by question or all questions? All right, let's go for all the questions. Okay, so let's attempt the questions in one go, then I'll explain. Don't worry, no negative marking here. Don't fret about whether what was wrong, what was right. We will discuss all of it. Okay, first attempt. Let's go for para 1 then. Let's go to the question. Okay, others? So I've got my top 3 responses. All say D. All right. Okay, Praneet says C. Okay. The answer that best matches the content and tone is D, Delhi. Absolutely right. Absolutely. Okay, so see, this one was easy for you. The previous one was difficult. That's okay. Let's just keep labeling and moving. Right. Question 3. Okay. What is sovereignty? So sovereignty is the right of a country to, take decisions for its own territory, for its own country. That is its sovereignty. Okay. So I've got D, B, C. All right. Hmm. Very diverse responses this time. Okay. So you had to capture the central idea, right? Now, if you are saying B or D, these are narrow. The answer is C. Okay, good. Those who took some time. Vindicated means proven right or justified. If not proven, if not such an extreme term, then at least justified. That is vindicated. Okay, so yes, question number 4 best explains the purpose of the first paragraph of the passage. Basically, why was it written? It's asking you the why of the first paragraph, right? Okay, all right, good. Somebody said this. Let's go to the paragraph. Okay, you said this earlier as well, Simran. I'm sorry. Sorry again. Sorry. All right, let's go to the question. Okay. C A. All right. Okay. All right. A B. A and C. Okay. So some of you, one, two of you have, three of you have answered correctly. Okay. Four of you now. Excellent. C is the answer here, right? These were close options. I agree, A was close. B could have been rejected. Some of you have marked B, but we will see. So this is tricky. It's not exactly difficult, it's tricky. Okay, so the fifth question is a bonus question for you. So let's see what you say here. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So it's primarily, I see an A versus B in the chat box. A versus B. Good. So if you're saying A versus B, that means you have narrowed down to the two close options. Good. The answer here is B, Bangalore, not A. B is stronger than A. Okay. So now we'll discuss, right? First of all, did anybody not understand the passage? What exactly are we talking about? So the passage begins with a yogurt company, and it feels like probably it is going to talk about yogurts, but that is not the point actually. The yogurt business is not the point of this particular passage, right? So the noun is proud of its yogurts. The French company boasts that 4 billion patented bacteria go into every pot, with each batch fermented for 8 hours, or roughly a quarter of the French working week. France understandably is proud of Danone, this company, its yogurt company. So when rumors emerged in 2005 that Pepsi was considering a bid for the company, the French political establishment howled. Howled. What does that mean? There was a hue and cry about it, right? They were like कि नहीं ये नहीं हो सकता, that sort of tone. Okay. Dominique de Villepin, the then Prime Minister, pledged to defend the interests of France. So they thought that, if Pepsi acquires it, it will not be in the interest of France. So right from this word, this moment, we see a protectionism, French protectionism. What is protectionism? The idea of protecting your domestic industry, right? Usually from foreign competition. How? By let's say giving entry barriers, by instituting certain import barriers, okay, or by subsidizing your domestic industry, right? That is protectionism. So it's an economic term. Jacques Chirac, the president at the time, promised to be vigilant and mobilized against any potential predator of French business. So look at the kinds of words that they're using. The author is also putting them in quotes. They are actually looking at a foreign company coming to their country and acquiring a company popular in their country as an attack of sorts, vigilant, mobilized against any potential predator of French business, right? So Anglo-Saxon capitalists guffawed. What does it mean to guffaw? Yes. To guffaw is to laugh. Okay, so when you just laugh on a joke, right? That's when you are guffawing on that joke. Ha 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 types, right? Laughter. So in Brussels, so why am I talking about Brussels? Any idea? What is there in Brussels? I think it is written right ahead of it that Brussels is where it serves as the de facto capital of European Union. So where all the business of European Union happens. Absolutely. So European Union headquarters are in Brussels, which is the capital of Belgium. Okay. So in Brussels, European Commission officials rolled their eyes. So just like we have a competition commission of India, they have a European Commission. They rolled their eyes. So why were they rolling their eyes? They were all rolling their eyes or laughing at France. Okay. Because they delivered lectures on the merits of red-blooded competition. They felt that competition is good, right? And therefore France should not be so protectionist. Similarly, Anglo-Saxon, when I say, I am talking about Britishers. I mean, not Britishers, the British people. Okay, so the British capitalists, they were also laughing at France. Strategic yogurt became a byword for the excesses of French protectionism. So they started using the word strategic yogurt, in fact, in order to show how excessive France's protectionism was. right? So now, based on your understanding of the first paragraph, and now that you've read the entire passage, you know that the rest of the paragraph is not about Danone, right? After a decade of such jokes, French ideas are now the bedrock of the EU's economic policy. Imagine, suddenly French ideas have become the very foundation of the EU's economic policy. So now let's go to this question. First of all, second question also comes from para 1. What can be inferred about the attitudes of various parties? So we have the French politicians, basically president and all. We have British capitalists, right? And who else do we have? We also have this third party, which is the EU, European Union, European Commission, basically. So while they are set against Pepsi bidding in, let's say, France, these people are laughing, yes, at this protectionism. These people are also rolling their eyes at this protectionism. So some parties were set against it, yes. Others found such protectionism excessive or flawed. We see that. So do you see why D is the answer here? We can't say that they were unreasonable and they were reasonable. Because, after a decade of such jokes, now French ideas are a bedrock of EU's economic policy. So B is not the answer. While some parties felt a threat to their sovereignty, others were not concerned about it. Can this be inferred from the passage? That, British capitalists and the European Commission, they were not concerned about the sovereignty. No. Okay. A says, while some parties were exceedingly protectionist, others were exceedingly optimistic. Where does the optimism come from? Alien, right? Optimism to nahi show kiya hua. So that's why D is the answer. Okay, so 2 questions were based on para 1. I always tell you to read the opening paragraph relatively slowly, relatively more carefully. Now let's look at this question. What is the purpose of the first paragraph of the passage? Okay, now that you have read the first paragraph, you are even aware of the tone and the various parties that have been talked about. Do you think the purpose is just to give an example of French protectionism in the form of Danone yogurts? Is it that, I would say, neutral? Is it just about French protectionism or about the excessiveness? So even if I go back, it says that strategic yogurt became a byword for the excesses of French protectionism. Right? So this is very neutral and very literal, this option. Quite literal. It's not really telling me the purpose, more about the content. Okay, so literal, neutral and rejected. Yes, last line says it all. Absolutely, Praneeth. So now between B and C, why have I chosen C? Because it is presenting a case, right? It is presenting the case of Danone yogurt. So it's not that the author is just acquainting the reader with the extent of French protectionism. It's not like I have been given multiple instances and shown through those that, France is so protectionist that they did this. They have such protectionist policies. They show excessive protectionism. That is not the content or the purpose of the first paragraph. It gave a case to me, and through that case it showed the excessiveness. Yes, so that's why C is the perfect answer. Case is here, that of case means, and again an example. When we study a case studies, so the case is the instance, the example, and that is of Danone. Okay, now extent is not the same as excessive. You are right. So when I say with the extent, I am again not commenting what is the degree there. You are also right in saying that, and plus I am not really showing the extent fully. I have just given you one case, and through that one case I'm trying to establish this. Okay, not that I have given you, let's say, multiple examples, not that I have given you France's policies. This would be the case, this would be the answer when, let's say, I showed you various France's policies that show how protectionist they are. Then yes, I could have said that I'm trying to show you the extent of French protectionism. Does that make sense? Okay, one para questions, right, all right. So I hope this is clear to you. So C is the answer here. And now let's go back to understanding the passage. So now second paragraph, what is it again? If I ask you what are some key ideas of the second paragraph, what would you say? Because somebody was saying this, no, retention is a problem. So let's see what all I had to retain in the second paragraph. B strategy mostly works. These are the common types of traps. Guffawed. How would we know that yeah, that is there, Simran. You are right. So now the thing is that guffawed is a high frequency word. So high frequency words we should endeavor to learn, right? So this, of course, the first sentence is a key idea. I think I've already highlighted this for you. And then we are given examples of how these French ideas of protectionism are now there as a part of EU's economic policy. Yes? What is another key idea? Yes, from rolling the eyes also it's quite evident. You're right, Praneeth. What is another key idea? The language has changed, but the content is the same. The language has changed, but the content is the same. Then it asks a question at the end, how did the French worldview take over? From making jokes about them to actually following this protectionism, how did that happen? So the rest of the two paragraphs explain how that happened. So please, retention is a product of making this structure in your head. Okay, Danone was an example to show the excessive French protectionism. Fine. But like everybody seemed to be laughing there. Yes, most of the people outside France seem to be laughing there. But now they are following this policy. So how did that happen? So this is the skeleton. Example. First we thought that it was excessive French protectionism. But now what has happened? EU's economic policy follows it. So how is explained through the two paragraphs. Para 3 and 4. Yes, like this. This helps in retention. So one reason is that the bloc's usual band of free traders are in retreat. What does this mean? Beast is, okay, beast refers to, okay, just writing this here, the common traps in options: broad, extreme, alien, sidetrack, and tone mismatch. Okay, so this is beast. All right. So going back is retreating. That the block here is European Union. I'm sure you know what European Union is. It's a group of European countries that have a free market. That means they are free to trade with each other. No customs duties, import-export duties apply, right? And there are also a number of other things there. And a subset of it is called the Eurozone, which also share a common currency, right? So Britain exited EU. You know this. It's called Brexit, the exit of Britain. So their usual band of free traders, those countries that usually encourage free trade, they are in retreat. Why? Because they have met with a backlash against trade deals with other countries. So this has taken place in some unlikely spots. So one reason that why is it that we are adopting these French ideas is because various countries that are a part of EU are facing a backlash against trade deals. People in these countries, politicians in these countries have criticized the free trade deals with other countries. Why would that happen? Tell me. Why would there be such a backlash against trade deals? Just guess. It's not given in the passage. I think you can guess it from this idea that, the year 2016 is remembered as when voters opted for Donald Trump and Brexit. Okay, but it was also a year when there was all of this backlash, right? Then we say that, Dutch MPs backed a motion against the ratification, okay, as have their usually liberal Irish counterparts. So there seems to be a right-wing wave. Okay, and I'm extrapolating here. The passage is not exactly saying this, but if you notice, there seems to be a protectionist wave, country first wave. We don't want to have free trade with other countries, right? So that could be the reason, I'm just extrapolating. Okay, now Britain's departure has deprived the economic liberals of clout. So clout is the influence that you hold. So, Britain perhaps was a liberal player, a liberal member of the EU. It actually supported free trade, but Britain has departed now. So these economic liberals who are currently a part of EU, they don't have any influence now. Okay, but then the author contradicts this idea, as in dilutes this idea, I would say. Even if Britain had stayed, EU's Frenchification might still have happened. Yes, it could still have Frenchified. Why? Because, why does the author say that? After the mention of Brexit from the third sentence. Okay, this is just giving us examples how the people of Netherlands voted against a trade agreement with Ukraine. They didn't want to have any trade agreement with Ukraine. And a band of Walloons threatened to bring down a similar one with Canada. So, Walloons, I'm not sure which nationality or which ethnicity it is, but they were also, so part of the EU, part of some country of EU, they were also against an agreement with Canada. So basically these are just examples to show you that there is a backlash against trade deals. That is why I didn't explain this part, because these are examples. Okay, this is the key idea. Alright, Brexit is, yes, when Britain exited the European Union. Okay, the single market idea. Okay, तो अब इसलिए हमें सेपरेट पासपोर्ट चाहिए, सेपरेट वीज़ा चाहिए यूके के लिए, राइट? ऑल ऑफ दोज थिंग्स. अदरवाइज पहले शेंगन वीज़ा पर चल जाता था. एनीवे, सो ब्रिटेन्स डिपार्चर हैज़ डिप्राइव्ड द on understanding the nitty-gritty. Yes, so we don't have to do that. Okay, in any passage that you find dense, be very single-mindedly focused on ideas, not a lot of these jargons or examples. Fine, मुझे नहीं पता, जैसे मुझे नहीं पता अभी balloons कौन है, मुझे ज़रूरत भी नहीं है बताने की. I don't need to, right? Okay. So the author is saying even if Britain had stayed, the EU's Frenchification might still have happened. Okay, so why is the author saying that? Why might it still have happened? Because outside the bloc, once it is outside EU, now that it is outside EU, Britain has spurned the idea. Spurn is reject. A spurned lover is a rejected lover. Britain has rejected the idea of Singapore on Thames and is pursuing London's shore Seine. What does this mean? Any idea? Just guess it. So Singapore on Thames would mean, Thames is a river that flows in London, right? So Singapore is considered to be a very free market economy with very low taxes. That's one of the reasons why people want to live in Singapore. Yes, very globalized, free trade supporting country, right? So people had thought that Britain, once it exits EU, it will promote this kind of an economy for the UK. सबने ऐसे सोचा था कि भाई थेम्स पर सिंगापुर ही एस्टैब्लिश कर देंगे वो अब, फ्री मार्केट, लो टैक्सेस. बट ऐसा हुआ नहीं. इनफैक्ट वॉट ब्रिटेन इज डूइंग आफ्टर एग्जिटिंग द EU, as per this passage, this is a relatively old passage, okay, so this is 2020. I'll tell you what has happened, but पहले अभी देखते हैं. And is pursuing London Shore Seine. So London Shore Seine is a river that flows in Paris. तो एक्चुअली में ब्रिटेन भी फ्रांस जैसा ही बिहेव कर रहा है आफ्टर एग्जिटिंग द EU. सो आफ्टर एग्जिटिंग द EU वो भी थोड़ा थोड़ा प्रोटेक्शनिस्ट बिहेव कर रहा है. इमेजिन, एक तो पहले एग्जिट करा और अब बिहेव भी प्रोटेक्शनिस्ट ही कर रहा है. yes, it has got more conservative in the context of its economic principles rather than liberal. Excellent, Simran. Absolutely correct. Great Mudit. So see, our general knowledge helps us. Yes. Surprisingly, the British government's right to pump businesses with taxpayers' money. So pump is support, promote, boost. So the British government has a right to boost businesses with taxpayers' money. So लोगों से टैक्स कलेक्ट करो और फिर बिजनेसेस को सब्सिडी दे दो. तो सब्सिडी देके क्या होगा? बूस्ट होगा बिजनेसेस को. सो ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट हैज़ दैट राइट, इजंट इट, स्पेशली आफ्टर एग्जिटिंग फ्रॉम द EU. अब उसके पास वो है फ्रीडम ये करने की, बिकॉज इट नो लॉन्गर हैज़ एनी EU कॉन्स्ट्रेंट नाउ. एंड दिस वॉज हिस्टोरिकली अ फ्रेंच ड्रीम, यू नो. फ्रांस तो चाहता ही यही था हिस्टोरिकली कि वो अपनी डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्रीज़ को बहुत सारा स्टेट सपोर्ट दे, बहुत सारा सब्सिडी दे. So France has been such a society which actually believes in government intervention, government support, subsidies to promote domestic industries and protect them against foreign competition. So this was historically a French dream, you know, to pump businesses with taxpayers' money. But for the British government, now that it has this right, it has emerged as an obstacle in trade talks. So something that was a dream for the French has emerged as a hindrance, as a hurdle for Britain right now. Does this make sense? Why do you think it is emerging as a hurdle in trade talks? Yes. Why is it emerging as a hurdle in trade talks? Because look at this. So ye trade talks, this passage actually doesn't give us this full context. The trade talks are happening with the EU itself now. So see, earlier the UK was a part of EU. It was a part of the EU. Yes. But now it has exited. So now the UK, if it wants to trade with the EU, it has to enter into trade agreement with them. But EU की क्या policy है ये हमें दिया भी हुआ है here. If you notice, the second paragraph says that new rules are in the works to make it easier to block foreign takeovers if the buyer has benefited from unfair subsidies. तो अगर उनकी कंट्री में कोई भी फॉरेन प्लेयर आता है and that foreign player in their own country they are providing subsidies to their businesses, they call it unfair. They feel that it is unfair competition because your business in your country is being boosted not because it is more efficient but because your government is providing you subsidies. Okay, so imagine ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट के पास फाइनली ये राइट आया कि वो सब्सिडीज़ प्रोवाइड कर सके. पहले EU का पार्ट थी तो वो कर नहीं सकती थी, ठीक है. अब वो कॉन्स्ट्रेंट गया, अब वो राइट आया, पर अगर EU के साथ ट्रेड करना है तो EU मना कर रहा है कि आप सब्सिडीज़ नहीं दे सकते अपने बिजनेसेस को. आई होप दिस इज़ क्लियर टू यू. Now Brussels is determined not to allow Britain the chance to undercut the bloc with subsidies. So this is something given here, right? Even if let's say you hadn't noticed this bit, you can notice it here, that EU is determined not to allow Britain the chance to undercut the bloc. Undercut the bloc means sell its cheaper products in the European Union and therefore beat it in competition with subsidies. And is in fact so serious about it EU is now so serious about it that even if its members, even if the members of EU don't abide by this, अगर जो मेंबर्स हैं अब EU के उन्होंने भी अपनी कंट्री में सब्सिडी दे दी ना, वो कहते हैं निकाल देंगे हम, आई विल कट यू. Okay, that is how serious the EU is. I hope all of this is making sense to you and you are with me. Okay, I am explaining all of this because it is essential for understanding the questions. Okay, Charles Michel, the European Council president, turned to a French playwright. Now notice this. Turned to a French playwright to explain the EU's hitherto means till now, unappreciated strength. So what did this guy Charles say? Just as Moliere's Monsieur Jourdain speaks, so Moliere must be a place in France, Monsieur is Mr. Jourdain speaks in prose without realizing it. So he's such a good playwright that even when he speaks, it's like prose is coming out, right? Similarly, Europeans have become a world power without realizing it. कि वो भी जैसे वो एक्सीडेंटली उनके साथ होता है, ऐसे ही यूरोप भी रियलाइज़ नहीं कर रहा. ठीक है, एक्सीडेंटली उसके साथ ऐसा हो गया कि अब वो वर्ल्ड पावर बन गई है. ओके, कैन EU मेक सच रूल्स विदाउट अप्रूवल फ्रॉम ऑल नेशंस इन EU? So EU does that because it says that we are a single market, and if you follow this economic nationalism within the member states, if anybody follows this economic nationalism, then the principle of a single market is undermined. No, फिर तो आप अपनी कंट्री को फर्स्ट मान रहे हो और EU को सेकेंडरी मान रहे हो. So EU says this is unfair, right? So they are like, if you have to be a part of the group, you have to conform with the group. ये बिल्कुल वही बिहेवियर चल रहा है जो हमारे ग्रुप्स में चलता है, right? Conformity. Okay, now why is this incorrect? Charles Michel did he quote the French playwright in the EU's context? Did he say something that the French playwright had said? What does it mean to quote someone? You are saying what they said. This is false. Okay, he is not saying anything that Jourdain had said. He is just giving an analogy. ये उसके वर्ड्स हैं, ये चार्ल्स मिशेल के वर्ड्स हैं. उसने एक एनालॉजी ड्रॉ करी है, एक कंपैरिजन दिया है. ओके, सो दिस वाज वेरी वेरी माइन्यूट. दिस वाज लाइक अ गॉचा क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, ये था ही कि मुझे लग रहा है आप गलत करोगे. ओके, सो A can be inferred. What was a dream for French in the past is now a hurdle for Britain. I think we can infer it from this sentence. This historically a French dream has emerged as an obstacle in trade talks. Okay, so can be inferred, and that is why, sorry, this part, that is why this is not the answer. So basically this can be inferred, and this on the other hand is false. So which one is the worse option? C. B, yes, this is given. We just read it in the second last paragraph, and this is again given to us here, right? This is just a paraphrase. Option D is just a paraphrase, right? So now 3 questions are clear to you. Yes, after understanding the passage, one was heavily based, 2 questions were heavily based on para 1, and then this first question was primarily based on the last para. Now let's come to the central idea. So now that you've understood the whole passage, tell me, those who marked B, strategic autonomy and economic sovereignty are the new euphemisms. What is a euphemism? A politer word for something that people otherwise may find offensive, right? So for instance, using restroom for the toilet is a euphemism, right? So is this the central idea? Tell me. Strategic autonomy and economic sovereignty, is the entire passage elaborating this, how they are euphemisms? Are you there? Are you there? Acha, I think I need to refresh my chats. Okay. Thank you, Praneeth, for responding. Yes, this is too narrow to be the answer. All right, just one sentence. In the on the first slide, I even highlighted this for you, that this is also one of the key ideas. Sorry, first slide. This bit. That's it. Okay. So no, this is narrow. Similarly, if you mark D, trade deals have fallen out of favor across the EU due to rising nationalist and protectionist sentiments. What is this? Again, just one para, not the central idea. Between A and C, why do you think C is better? Is the passage focused more on France's protectionism, or is it focused more on EU's changing economic policy? How the French worldview has taken over the EU's economic policy. That is what it is more focused on, right? So it's focused on the latter, and C actually captures that focus. The EU's economic policies. It's not that it is just embracing the principles. They are now a part of the policy itself, right? New rules are in the works. A carbon border tax, right? Industrial strategies. So they have been a part of, they have become a part of the policy. The EU's economic policies now reflect a dramatic shift. It is a dramatic shift. Earlier they were rolling their eyes on this, toward a more assertive interventionist stance. Interventionist when the government intervenes, right? So here EU is intervening, and this is driven by French ideology of protectionism. Okay, so this is actually matching what the entire passage is trying to capture. Does that make sense? Yes, absolutely, Praneeth, absolutely. Only C captures it. Okay. All right. Perfect. Fourth, we had already discussed. Now, yes, somebody said I would skip it. Which one would most seriously undermine the idea that EU has undergone a Frenchification of its economic policy? Right. So, this is actually the central idea. You have to undermine the central idea in a way, isn't it? So if I say no, EU is doing something that France would not do. EU is doing something that France would not do. That would undermine this. Yes. So those who have marked A, France itself has begun signing more free trade agreements than any other EU country in the last 5 years. So it's possible that France has changed in the last 5 years. Does that mean that historically everything that it did, all the protectionism before the last 5 years is negated? Or does it mean that, just because France has started doing it, EU also has started liberalizing more? EU has also started signing more free trade agreements. Other members of the EU could still be conservative now. So, no. France is just one country. Other member states of the EU could still have this policy, economic policy, which is conservative, protectionist, and the last 5 years don't really negate the history. Yes, absolutely. We just have to question this idea. So the EU has enacted strict anti-subsidy regulations that constrain member state invention in domestic industries. I even told you about this, yes? That EU says even to its member nations that, you can't, within your own countries, you can't provide subsidies, right? Because if you do, then you are putting EU as second and your nation as first. This won't do. That is what EU told them. So it is stopping them from actually giving subsidies in their nation. Whereas historically, what has been the French dream? The French society is a state interventionist society. मतलब कि वहाँ पर तो ये accepted है कि government intervene करे, ठीक है, प्रोटेक्ट करे डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्री को. इनफैक्ट दिस इज गिवन हियर टू पंप बिजनेसेस विद टैक्स पेयर्स मनी, सब्सिडीज दे, और ये तो हिस्टोरिकली फ्रांस का ड्रीम रहा है. सो इफ EU इज डूइंग दिस, मेकिंग एंटी सब्सिडी पॉलिसीज, एंटी सब्सिडी regulations, that means it has not undergone a complete Frenchification, isn't it? because it is still doing something that France historically would not do. आया समझ. So that's why B is the answer. ठीक है, जो भी skip करने की सोच रहे थे, this is for them. Okay. This one says they have pushed back, so what? Fine, they may have pushed back, but then EU may still have gone a Frenchification. नहीं सुन रही वो उनकी बात. EU countries करें push back कर रही हैं तो, right? So pushback is one step away from an active action. This is showing a step that is against Frenchification. This just shows there is a pushback, but no active step taken against it. Hence, not C. And the last one is absolutely irrelevant. Okay, so this is irrelevant. Is this clear? I gave you 5 questions today because while for the last 4 years we've had 4 question RCs, right? In 2020 when the pattern changed, we had 2 5 question RCs and 2 4 question RCs. That's why 1 extra question. Okay, can you suggest some sources from where to read the history of EU Brexit? I also haven't read it from some dedicated sources. I was just following the developments when Brexit happened. The Guardian offered, of course, a lot of information back then, right? So fortunately I followed it there. For the history of the EU, I'll have to find out. There must be some books, okay, there must be, let's say, a couple of documentaries also that talk about it, but currently I don't know any one single source, right? So I just keep reading about it. The Guardian again is very focused about EU. It's very focused on Brexit. It was at least, and Britain. तो वहाँ से काफ़ी material मिल गया, right? To discuss about these important historical or economic developments that we should know. Yes, Simran, we can do that. Yeah, so we can actually frame some such sessions where we talk about these common terms that we should know about or common developments that we should know about. Good idea. Maybe I'll keep it as a part of VRC gym itself, this series itself. Okay, so thank you for suggesting that. And this was a picture that was a part of the article in The Economist. So if you see, this is the French flag, but the French flag does not have these stars. This is the EU flag. Okay, just this much is the EU flag, and without the stars it's the French flag. So actually this is trying to show the Frenchification of EU. So beautifully depicted, isn't it? I found it very interesting, right? And this is, yogurt being thrown at perhaps the foreign investors, okay, businesses. So strategic yogurt, right? Very creative. No VA questions today, okay? We'll do that in the next session, right? So 1 RC, 1 VA, and now somebody has given me the idea of common terms, right? So we'll mix and match. This is those who attended the session yesterday, just making sure that you remember this. In case, let's say, your accuracy today was low, remember this, okay? Keep up at it, don't give up. The best view comes after the hardest climb, okay? That's why treks are so beautiful. All right. Editorials and VRC gym. So yes, 1 editorial session per week. That's what we are thinking of, okay? And 1 VARC gym. But going forward, it's quite possible that instead of the editorial, we keep 2 VRC gym sessions. So let's say 1 day VA, 1 day RC. That's what we may do. Okay, so we are figuring it out. All right. Thank you. Yes, guffawed. Right, and also there was this word. So there were quite a few good words today. Not just guffawed. Rolling the eyes, I think rolling the eyes everybody knows. Red-blooded competition is vigorous competition. Okay, so red-blooded competition is one word that you can remember, right? Spurned, rejected. So, spurned lover. Welcome. Ratification, yes. To ratify an agreement is to actually sign it. Harsh is asking something. Harsh, what is it that, okay. some sources for difficult reading. Okay, so Harsh, I have suggested to you in editorial analysis 5, just go to it. I gave a detailed breakup of the sources, editorial analysis 5, of the sources of your CAT RCs over the last 5 years. Those are the sources that you can refer to. They do contain dense reads, difficult reads. They have Eon, Smithsonian Mag, the NYT, the Guardian, right? So just go through this once. All right. Thank you Simran. Just this one. Thank you for attending. I'll see you in the next week, right? Perhaps Tuesday, Wednesday, that is what we'll fix, and 5 p.m. Okay, bye bye, see you.